Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Such.
And my name is very tired, James.
Very tired, James, because you, once again, yesterday, traipsed around the country to watch your team get knocked out of another cup. I mean,
That's
it's your
that's
fault, mate.
not that's not my full name, very tired, James. My full name is Stupid James. Because I
Hmm.
keep traipsing around this country for I don't know what at the moment. But Suj, think of all the money I'm gonna save now we're out of these cup competitions.
Do this. Figure out how much you spent on tickets, travel, whatever, for the last two trips in the last 4 days to Liverpool and Aston Villa, then divide the number of goals you conceded by how much you spent, and then just think about I paid X pounds per goal scored against me to watch. If that and that doesn't make you feel worse about yourself, then nothing else will. Your team
Thanks.
are out of the FA Cup. There are other teams that are not yet out of the FA Cup, like Plymouth. Congratulations to them for a monster result. Showing you, well, I say showing you how it should be done. They did have home advantage, which you didn't last week. So, there is that. And we are slightly closer to figuring out what the picture looks like for the rest of the season. It would have been nice if the FA could have done the draw last night rather than doing it tonight to kind of give us a little bit more of a clearer picture. But from my understanding, James, it looks like there are potentially up to 7 non-Premier League teams that could be in the next round. There are 5 through, I think, and then Bournemouth have got whoever they're playing in Forest
Bournemouth
have
for
got
free.
Exeter.
Palace at
Oh, sorry.
Doncaster tonight.
So if Doncaster and Exeter go through, then there's 7 non-Premier League teams out of 8, which is quite high. I'm quite surprised by that number, to be honest with you. But then there's nearly half.
We've got 4 of the expected top 8, the greedy 6 plus Newcastle, Villa, and obviously Newcastle Villa still in. So, in fact, different way of doing it was 4 of the big 6 are out, isn't it?
Mm, yeah. So it's quite. I would say it's fairly open, but then you've still got some monsters like Man City still in there, and so on and so on. So yeah. Well, what are your kind of takeaways from the weekend of FA Cup action and what have you? And of course, in this episode, we're going to get back to planning around chips and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Good news is though, although the draw is tonight, Suj, I don't think it will move to projections
Mm.
unless we have a lot of big ties in the draw tonight. So the way it's kind of unfolded with pretty much Liverpool and Tottenham both going out, I don't think the needle will move by the draw tonight in terms of what we can project going forward. And we're going to talk about projections and strategy ideas for what to do with chips, obviously. In terms of what I watched at the weekend, unfortunately, I didn't watch Manchester City at Leighton Orient. I was out with the little man all day Saturday. I did watch United against Leicester Friday night, which I'd only just like to acknowledge that it was a very, very good evening for those of us who really detest VAR to stay off socials because the Harry Maguire goal was obviously a very, very long way offside. And actually, Leicester were in complete control in that second half at 1-0 up. And then United just started putting Garnacho in behind and then a bit of panic ensued. So Garnacho had a really big impact in the game, I thought. United kind of teeter from the capable to, yeah, anybody that's set up well against them can do very well against them. I didn't see much of Birmingham, Newcastle. Obviously, Newcastle mass rotated. Newcastle's going to be a big theme of this podcast. I did watch all of Chelsea at Brighton on Saturday night, and they were limp, Chelsea, but a bit toothless at the top end. Did you watch it?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
You obviously got a Brighton team that was pretty fragile after the battering at Nottingham Forest the week before, and Chelsea at the top end just weren't a huge threat. I mean, really missed Jackson, which is so ironic considering how much within our
He
fantasy
misses.
community we banter
Yeah.
him. But yeah, they
I mean, I know you're going to move on to Liverpool and Tottenham. I think I saw a tweet from the XG philosophy that it was the first weekend that Liverpool, Chelsea, and Tottenham were all out XG'd in the same
why
weekend.
are you including my team? We get XG'd every week, mate.
No, as much as we banter you, you guys do create a lot of chances or have had a lot of goals. It's the first time that all 3 of you guys were out XG, so that leans towards that with Chelsea. I heard another stat as well, which blew me away the other day. This kind of leads into your point around Jackson. that Cole Palmer, since December maybe, had created 32 chances for teammates,
None scored.
all of which missed.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. There's quite a few people selling him in
Mental.
FPL at the moment. It's not under consideration for me, actually.
No, me neither. But I was just like, he's got to be pulling his hair out, monster.
And for those who haven't seen it, arguably you should be credited with the goal, which is a huge mistake from Bart for Bruggen in the Brighton goal. So you think Chelsea have kind of got the initiative. Brighton have had the really bad week, score a really dodgy goal, and I didn't follow up on it. I think that the bigger miss for them is it's not Jackson, it's Lavia. Lavia seems to
Yep,
give balance around to Casado, Fernandez, and Palmer that really, really helps. He's a very combative player. Sounds like he's not going to be back for a while. So, yeah, I mean, they're in a real battle now for Champions League qualification when I guess kind of in mid-December, a lot of us were saying, well, if there is a third one involved in the title race, it will be them. So
Chelsea. Yeah,
it's been a disappointing period for them. And I think there's a few questioning the manager now, but I think there's more question marks in terms of how Chelsea have invested their money at the moment. Manager needs a little bit more time, in my opinion. Good result for Brighton, though,
yep.
with a really nice winning goal from Kara Mitoma. I didn't watch Liverpool at Plymouth yesterday.
I only
I
caught the last 5 minutes or so, only because I actually was on the phone to Clayton talking about something, and he said, "Oh, Plymouth will win." I was like, "Oh, really? Let me just switch it on," and basically expected Liverpool to equalise at any point in the last 5 or so minutes. But I mean, that's a shock.
I was outside the Doug Ellis stand at Villa Park, and someone walked past and went, "Plymouth are winning." And my dad was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Dad, that's a guaranteed we've lost now, mate. Like, don't think about other games and who's in and who's out and stuff." And we did catch the final 10 minutes plus added time on the concourse in the away end. Obviously, look, Arne Slot mass rotated the team, right? Does show
Yeah,
you,
I
right? If
mean,
you've got all your
don't get
best
me
players
wrong.
unavailable,
That team, I mean, you still the front three was still like I'd consider heavy hitters. Chiesa maybe has been a little bit of a bit part, not even really had any action. But Jota up top, Diaz started as well, didn't he? I mean, I think there's enough firepower there that
oh,
you'd
definitely
expect
up
them to
top.
get through Plymouth. I was more at the back and midfield, a couple of kids and stuff in there. But the likes of Harvey Elliott and stuff, they've been playing Premier League football for a while now.
Yeah, but not regularly enough recently. So I mean, we've got four real good kind of central midfield players: McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, and Jones. Didn't take any of them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in terms of their control of the game, seems like it was absent appearance yesterday. And to be honest, all our Liverpool patrons have said like Plymouth deserved their victory on the day, no doubt about it. Great story for them because they're bottom of the championship at the moment. I think they'd lost their last home game 5-0 at home to Burnley. Burnley can't score goals despite how well they're doing in the championship. They had a great win at themselves at Southampton at the weekend. But yeah, super result for Plymouth. That's what this competition's about, isn't it?
Oh, for
But
sure. It
but
just
rea-
happens. It's few and further between giant killings. So when they do happen now, you're just like, yeah, nice.
reality is, I don't want to take anything away from it. If Liverpool play their first 11, it probably doesn't happen, right?
Of course not.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I say, of course not. The chances are much, 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 much less.
I don't think Liverpool fans shouldn't fret about it, right? So you can bin any talk of quadruples and stuff like that, but I think that was always going to be pretty unlikely. With Liverpool obviously booking their place in the Carabao Cup final last week, they got plenty of fixtures still to come. Having those little breaks, for example, before their last 16 in the Champions League, they've now got a free weekend, but that's after a period of playing Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday. Yeah, do you know what? It might be good for Liverpool to have that little bit of a break before the
Hmm.
Champions League restarts for them. Did you watch my shitty team yesterday?
No, 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 no.
We
I
got
saw you
a-
went 1-0 down after 1 minute, and I didn't need to switch it on after that.
we got absolutely destroyed. Do you know it reminded me of quite a lot. I mean, it reminded me of a lot of Tottenham debacles I've seen this season. Reminded me a lot of when City went to Villa. Villa
And they ran
slapped
through him
them.
in the midfield. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Particularly through those central areas. But then City got a really late goal, if you remember, and it was the same for
Mhm.
Tottenham yesterday, and it was completely undeserved. But then you have like a minute or two of, well, could it? Oh, Villa were really good. And it's worth saying Villa obviously missed a lot of players themselves. I come back onto Villa because we need to talk about them from an assets perspective, obviously, with
Mm.
them about to double. For my team, yeah, just kind of whatever now and it a little bit numb to what's happening, which is a really, really bad place to
The
be.
keeper's a bit ropey.
Do you know
Kinski, in terms
what?
of shot stopping from distance and stuff, isn't great. He's been
No,
getting a bit of
I'm
stick.
I'm gonna defend him actually. Obviously, the first goal, absolutely, he should do better with it. And he didn't start the game well, but he made some big, really big saves in the second half, particularly, which people will then forget about.
The
He's
problem with
made
keepers
some. I
though
think
is
he
when
made three
you,
one-on-one saves.
yeah, like it, the kind of what I've seen in terms of criticism or kind of feedback on him is reaction saves and instinctive stuff. He's really good, but when things are from distance or volume of shots, is when he makes mistakes. The problem for keepers is you make a mistake and it goes in and it's obviously
Of course.
emphasized. Whereas if a midfielder misses a tackle, sometimes it can be washed over, and that's quite unfortunate. But
Let's remember he's 21. He's come over from Czech league. If you buy a 20, how many 21-year-olds do you get that are world class for like 12.5 million? Do you know
well, that's
what?
it. This is the problem, though. He looks like a 12.5 million keeper.
Yeah, but he's a backup goalkeeper. That our goalkeeper's still missing. Hopefully, he could even be back next week. Seems to maybe even be the word in Vicario. So, I think like people saw Kinski's debut in the first leg against Liverpool and thought, "Oh, Tottenham got a new number one. He's going to really threaten Vicario." But it's kind of clear now that that's not the case, and Vicario will go back in goal as and when he's available. So, yeah, I'm not going to dig out the 21-year-old goalkeeper, mate. I don't care what anyone says, a massive improvement than the tree. Sorry to say it. So the tree has gone from first choice in December to fourth choice now once Vicario's back. So he's very unlikely he's going to play for the club again. But Tony's done all
And it's
right.
English, isn't he? So he'll stick in and around the squad for homegrown. Fraser Forster, you'll have
They've
him for
left,
another 10 years,
they've,
mate.
they've taken him out the Europa squad, and they haven't added Kinski to the Europa squad. So they must think Vicario's really close because obviously our whole season now is obviously Europa, which checks notes ends in about 4 weeks. But we're in that at the
For
moment.
4 more weeks. Fair play.
Yeah, the massive problem I think for Tottenham that was really highlighted over these two batterings, let's be honest, at Villa and Liverpool was obviously it's well documented the injuries offensively and defensively. But actually, in terms of the central midfield players like Bentancur, Bissouma, Sarr is kind of a half and half. It's certainly not a six, but obviously an eight. Those guys are available. So that's the one bit of the team that should be stable, and they've been terrible. They've been absolutely terrible over the last few games. So I mean, that's the biggest thing for Tottenham in the summer is actually go and get a good central midfield. But you've got a central midfield that is not playing well. Defense is obviously massively handicapped. Offense is obviously massively handicapped. Is what it is. Sounds like a few players be back soon. This could be a blessing. That it's obviously it doesn't feel like one now, but in terms of actually trying to salvage the season in the Europa, it might be a blessing that we're out of this as well. We are due to get some players back very, very soon. Not good enough. Manager is under huge pressure now. There's definitely a real split now. It's 50-50 amongst the fan base. My kind of outline is he's just gone through 3 months with half the team and more injured, and now they're coming back, and now you're going to sack him. Like it feels like he's got to get the Europa League fixtures, in my opinion, and see how he gets on once his players are back. If it doesn't improve once his team's available, there's no way he'll be manager next year. And as I said to you after we lost to Everton, I'm in no position where I can defend him anymore, and he's got to do a lot of work to kind of win back my love. He's miles from it at the moment. For Villa, we need to talk about from a fantasy perspective, obviously, because we know they're going to double now. Some really lively cameos yesterday off the bench from Marcus Rashford and Marco Asensio. Asensio, the Villa fans will love Asensio. First thing he did when he come on was do a double drag back. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm here. I can
Was
play."
he
He's a very good technician.
playing up top as a striker, or
No,
did
he
he
kind
come
of
on the wing?
played off the right, but Villa didn't really play with out and out wide men. They kind of funnel into like a four two
Narrow.
two two where the wide players come inside. Yeah, just completely dominated Tottenham between the lines. I mean, the amount of times they played through us, disgusting. Again, a midfield problem. I don't think you could go Asensio or Rashford at the moment because I don't know if they're going to go in the team for that weekend. It would be so punny to go for them at the moment. Rodgers will be stable for his minutes. The only thing there's a note on Morgan Rodgers moving forward is he's on 8 yellow cards. So if you are investing new and you're looking to hold it longer term, you might want to consider that there's every chance he'll face a 2-game ban at some point. 10 yellow cards amnesty ends after the 32nd league game. So we're about to come up to what, 25th?
Hmm.
So you can afford what, one yellow card across what, the next seven or so. Now some people might be wild carding in 30. Don't like that. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, Morgan Rogers, I think, is the standout Villa player that I would really, really want if I didn't have. That's the only one I've got this week, and that might be how it stays because we don't know how we sit with Ollie Watkins at the moment. My only route to him would be, and there is a route here because Nicholas Jackson is doubtful. I could go, and so's Anthony Gordon. I've got the two. I could go Gordon to a Bournemouth player and Jackson to Watkins, and that might solve my problems in the immediate, but it might give me a bit more of a headache with Watkins moving forward because I think as soon as I put him in, I possibly want to move him back out quite soon. Because Villa's fixtures actually are tough, and they're still in the Champions League. They're now one of the favourites in the FA Cup. There's some distractions there. And also, I think very importantly on Villa yesterday, we barely had a kick in the first 25 minutes. And we had a breakaway where Son should have scored. It would have been an undeserved equaliser, but he should have scored. And in the build up to that, Konsa got injured. And Villa then struggled to maintain the ascendancy for quite a while after that. Point being is really light defensively. Now, I think by the time we get
I
to the
remember when they
double,
played us, Mings went down injured, and after
yeah,
that we got back into the game in the second half. So
by the time we get
Mings
to the
out, Konsa
double,
out.
I think their centre back situation will clear up a little bit because we think Tyrone Mings trained on Friday and wasn't going to be risked for this. There's every chance he'll be back for the double. And obviously Axel Disasi has been signed on loan from Chelsea. Obviously can't play in the FA Cup. So it might be that that's Villa's centre back pairing going into double game at 25 because the way Ezri Konsa was beating the ground, I'd find it very unlikely he's going to be up. He's going to be available, and that's the one people will want to. I think would have wanted to go to for security purposes in terms of minutes. Matty Cash, we don't think is going to be back. There's every chance Dean plays one, Matson plays one. I'd be completely avoiding that defensively. I think if you've got Konsa, obviously importantly, you need the team news at the weekend, but I would suggest there's every chance Konsa will miss out.
Yep. And like you said, we've got two games still to go in the FA Cup, Doncaster Palace and Exeter Forest in the next couple of days. But this draw is tonight before the Doncaster Palace game. So, yeah, as much as you've said, it won't affect the projections as much. Let's hope all the Premier League teams get drawn against each other, which means more get knocked out, which means...
it can do. We probably need 4 of the top 5 in the betting, I think, to probably draw each other to move the projections moving forward. So, look, one real caveat before as we kind of move on to strategy here is the projections have moved massively from the 3rd round to now. Mm-hmm. And there's every chance after the 5th round. Look at the shocks. No one was foreseeing Liverpool losing this weekend, were they?
No.
Right. You get Man City losing the 5th round. We're moving the needle again here, guys. And there's every chance, right, that this is just one of them random years where mad stuff happens. We had 3 championship teams reach the FA Cup semi-finals in 2008. I'm not suggesting that will happen again, but I think, as you mentioned earlier, the amount left in and the amount of big clubs that have really gone out, it was every chance we get, a championship team reach the FA Cup semi-finals, for example. Every chance. And obviously, if that happens, you potentially less fixtures coming out of game week 34, right? You might end up with 8 fixtures or 9 fixtures.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of, Liverpool specifically, and yourselves to a certain extent, and Chelsea being available in 34 helps me a lot with my bench boost. And knowing that there's going to be at least another 6, maybe 7 fixtures in total, or sorry, an additional 4 or 5, whatever that works out to, in 34 really helps me for bench boost 34. To be honest with you,
you ain't get a bench boost in 34, Serge.
Sorry, 33. Sorry, 33.
Well, surely Liverpool Tottenham going into 33 would have helped you, wouldn't it?
Well, the thing is, it's the games before. When I'm looking at when am I going to wildcard, it's the games before and the games after that affect when I'm going to be wildcarding. Do you know what I mean? So right now, as it stands, I have free hit, bench boost, wildcard, Assmen. I have 7 players who blank technically in game week 29, which makes it very easy for me to say, okay, if I've got 7 players that blank, I can free hit in 29. Though, as you mentioned, Gordon, I might sell because he's on the chopping block anyway. I've got no value in him. Trent potentially, but don't want to, but he could go. I could be down to only 4 or 5 blankers in 29, but still, I'm highly likely to free hit in game week 29. Because the other thing with game week 29 is I want to get a Haaland. The only way to get Haaland is to sell maybe Salah or Palmer, and I don't want to do either of those two things. So I can get Haaland, captain Haaland, without breaking my team if I free hit in game week 29. I've got a bench boost and wild card, which will be around the double. The biggest double right now is going to be 33. So I'll work for 33
Projected.
for projected for bench boost and wild card out of it, most likely, because I've got a lot of free transfers. I can work towards 33. And the interesting thing is then it only leaves me one other choice, which is Assmen, which is 3 weeks. So I've got to do 25, 26, 27, or I've got to do 30, 31, 32, or I've got to do 35, 36, 37, or 38, whichever of those I choose. So it kind of now really, I'm down to like just 3 windows of choice. And I think a lot of people might start finding themselves and figuring out, okay, well, when you plot in when you're going to use the chips, remembering that you can't double up, you're going to end up with windows of opportunity now to use the others.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to run through some Arsman options, triple captain options. We're going to cover each chip individually along this path. It's interesting. So you've obviously got a lot left. What we use, triple captain, and
That's it.
that's it. So you've got quite
Obviously
a bit
my
left.
first wild card, but yeah, I've got everything else, mate.
Yeah, so you're going to be kind of really surrounded around the doubles and the blanks. Obviously, I'm down to just assistant manager and wild card, right? So I've got to be way more cautious about what I do rather than you. For example, you could free hit 29 and start just moving forwards in terms of attacking fixtures in the immediate potentially. I mean, you got more free transfers as well.
I've got 4 as it stands, James.
I got one. I'm surviving like Ange at the moment, mate. Literally clinging on by my fingertips with what's going on. Okay, let's talk what we know and some discussion about what might happen. So we know
Sure.
now double game at 25 confirmed. Aston Villa will play Ipswich at home and Liverpool at home. Liverpool will play Wolves at home and Aston Villa away. Game week 29 is likely 8 fixtures. I'm going to say likely. We'll come back on to maybe why in a bit. That will now include confirmed Arsenal versus Chelsea and Fulham versus Tottenham will be played in game week 29 following Arsenal and Tottenham being eliminated from the Carabao Cup semi-finals last week. There is still a small chance that Newcastle and Crystal Palace could stay in game week 29. I'm going to talk Newcastle in a bit more detail in a bit. What I'm going to do in this one was work backwards a little bit rather than just work forwards. And we actually wanted to kind of strip from the end of the season and work backwards and have a discussion about things that may or may not happen. So game week 37 is going to be the weekend of the FA Cup final. So we know any Premier League team that plays in the FA Cup final, their fixture is not going to happen that weekend. It can still happen in the midweek afterwards. It could happen in the midweek beforehand. And in the case of Manchester United, should they get to the FA Cup final and Europa League final, stop laughing, it is possible. Then their fixture with Chelsea would have to be brought forward because the Europa League final is in the midweek between game weeks 37 and 38. We agree with that?
Yep.
So if United are due to play at Chelsea, FA Cup final weekend, if they're still in Europe, that game has to get brought forward. And I would suggest that probably only needs United to reach the semi-finals because you'd have to leave it open for the possibility that United could play in the final, right? So there's every chance that in game week 36, you'll have Chelsea United going there if United get to an FA Cup final and if they reach the semis of the Europa League. I point that out because a lot of people were very quick to analyse on Saturday night and saying there'd be no double game week for Cole Palmer. Well, yeah, there absolutely could still be a double game week for Cole Palmer. For the record, that would be Newcastle away and Manchester United at home. So it probably wouldn't be the best. But you know what? If you were stuck with your triple captaincy near the end, there's every chance you'd be activating on it. Yeah, absolutely. Now, that's not to say that will happen again. That needs United to do well in the 2 cup competitions. But due to that prospect, we also know if Bournemouth versus Manchester United needs to be postponed from game week 34, it's got to be brought forward. If United are still in Europe, it's got to be brought forward. And in this case, I think that only needs United to get to the quarterfinals of the Europa League. Because again, you can't wait. And when the midweek of game week 33 is going to get announced, that's presumably going to be well, after the FA Cup quarterfinals in the coming days, pretty soon after that, you couldn't wait on the possibility, or let's wait to see what United do in Europa League quarterfinals because it's the midweek afterwards in 33. So if United reach the FA Cup semi-finals and they're still in the Europa League quarterfinals, Bournemouth and United would have to go into game week 33. So it's brought forward from game week 34 to game week 33. This would have been the case with Liverpool Tottenham as well. Obviously, Tottenham now going out the FA Cup. We know Liverpool Tottenham will stay in game week 34. As it stands, the top four in the betting in the FA Cup are Manchester City,
Yep.
Newcastle,
Hmm.
Manchester United, and Aston Villa. Therefore, in terms of projecting what will happen in game week 34, most of us will follow the line of what the bookmakers predict. You always need the caveat with something like Manchester United that because of the size of the club, there's the weight of money, etc. But actually, United won the FA Cup last year when no one
They did.
particularly gave them a prayer, and they
Chance. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly that, right? And they're a big club, right? When they hit the line and got that winning mentality, they know how to do it, right? The most of that squad has
Mm.
won that trophy last year. So top four in the betting is City, United, Newcastle, Aston Villa. If that was to be the FA Cup semi-finalists, that would leave us with 3 games postponed from game week 34. Bournemouth, Manchester United, as already mentioned. Newcastle versus Ipswich. And also Manchester City and Aston Villa scheduled to play each other, which would mean we'd have 7 fixtures in game week 34. Now, you could end up with something like if you had Manchester City and Aston Villa were FA Cup semi finalists and you had 2 championship teams, such you could end up with 9 games in game week 34. Don't want to use
Right.
a free hit under that circumstance. Again, that's an unlikely probability. But the fact City and Villa are now projected to reach that stage and they play each other would mean we'd only lose 3 fixtures as it stands from 34. For the record, the fifth team in the betting surge is Bournemouth.
Right.
Now, as Bournemouth are scheduled to play Manchester United, that's not going to move the needle either, right? So what I'm saying is if you did have tonight, Villa were drawn away to City, for example, we'd then obviously project that Villa would go out, but it wouldn't change the projections for the fixtures to be postponed because Bournemouth would jump into the top four of the betting instead, most likely.
Right. Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah. 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 Yep.
And that's why I say, actually, because Bournemouth are scheduled to play United, so you're grouping that 5 teams, you probably need 2 of the 5 to draw each other tonight for it to
As in
move the
four of
needle
the
of
five
projections.
to draw each other. So
4 of the 5, sorry.
so two ties to be
Correct.
made up of those four teams. What you mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. If you're wondering why it's those teams and say like not Nottingham Forest that's third, well, let's see what Forest do with their team tomorrow night. That might move the needle a little bit. But Forest obviously heavily rotated in round 3, and I think the expectation is that they might keep doing so. Whereas Bournemouth obviously picked quite a strong team at the weekend.
It's not likely though. Let's be honest. The heated balls and all that. You know what the FA are like. Looking after the greedy six and what have you. They'll sort it out, mate. Don't worry.
Mm,
Everyone's going to be kept apart.
okay, I think they might have give Manchester United a trip to the Emirates in round 3, mate.
Yeah. Someone was wearing gloves.
I mean, they give me Tamworth and they give me Villa. They give me different ends of the spectrum, mate, and we suffered just as badly in both. We just managed to
Yeah,
get through one of them.
that's true. Maybe there needs to be people need to listen back to your Clayton and James show with Clayton, where you discussed who is even in the big six these days. Anyway,
In the
yes,
event that tonight 4 of those 5 teams did draw each other, subject to what those draws are. So I think one of them would need to be away to City, for example. If City and Newcastle draw each other, I think they're still in the top 4 for the betting.
yeah,
But say if Villa got drawn away to City and Bournemouth had a really good home tie, then Bournemouth possibly would jump
jump
above
above
Villa in the
Villa.
betting.
Yeah,
For the
makes sense.
record, currently Brighton are 6th in the betting.
Okay,
And again, to reference back about Forest rotating, Brighton only made 1 change at the weekend. So they've again, it might be because they played Chelsea, might be a relevance of that, but they've gone strong. So that's a reference to what people will think they were right. Brighton are treating this very, very seriously. That's why currently there'll be a shorter price than say Nottingham Forest, who beat Brighton 7-0 last week. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So Brighton are scheduled to play West Ham in game week 34. That would maybe become a new projection that fixture would maybe be projected to move. My instinct currently, Suj, is that they're trying to leave game week 36 free for the teams that would be in the FA Cup final.
Final, not semi-finals. So
Correct.
just bringing forward two fixtures
So this is kind of discussion
or one,
point here.
whatever. Yeah.
So Bournemouth Man United, we've already determined would have to be brought forward, right? If United are still in Europa, it has to go to
Okay.
33. That's not the case with City Villa or Newcastle Ipswich or pretty much any other fixture that was now get postponed from game week 34. The midweek of game week 33 is before the FA Cup semi-finals. The midweek of game week 36 is before the FA Cup final. Which week would you rather have free?
Not before the final, before the semis.
Correct. I think there's a play here, and this could be completely wrong. I promise you, it could be completely wrong. But I think there's an intention at the moment to try and leave teams that would play in the final out of that midweek of 36. Now, we've already said in the case of Manchester United, that would obviously be impossible should they reach
Yeah.
both finals. They'd have to. There would be no choice. And by the way, under that circumstance, if Chelsea were still in the Conference League, then that's got to be on the Wednesday night. So they would play on the Wednesday night and then the FA Cup final on a Saturday. Yeah, that Cole Palmer triple captaincy might be against a Manchester United reserve 11. Well, if
Yeah.
United got nothing to play for in the league, why
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
they?
of course.
You
They,
just
they
throw the
would,
game.
they would.
So it's
Yeah, no
things
doubt
like
about
that. So think of it like this as well. That's a circumstance that would have to happen, right? And if Manchester United have got an FA Cup final on the Saturday and a Europa League final on the Wednesday, and they've got Chelsea away on the Wednesday before the final, and they're 10th, 11th in the
It's
league,
irrelevant. That game will have, the youth team out.
right? You can't blame United if they did that, right?
No, not at all. Absolutely
No.
not at all.
But it might cause some anger for City, Newcastle, Forest,
Oh,
Bournemouth,
well.
Villa.
It happens every year this time of year. Every year this time of year.
But that's also part way I say avoid it if you can. That little period, right?
Avoid it in the sense of what? Avoid using chips during that period?
No, as in avoid putting games there for teams that
Oh,
could play
okay,
in
I
the
see what you mean.
final.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't see it's possible, but let's give a different example, right? Because I mean, let's move on to Newcastle, right? So Newcastle, we know have got this game to arrange against Crystal Palace, postponed from 29. Unlike the three other games that could have been postponed from that weekend, it didn't have an announcement that it could be brought forward. I've said a few times that I think it could stay in 29. Now, for that to happen, you need Newcastle and Crystal Palace to both go out of the FA Cup before the next round, before the fifth round. But if tonight, for example, Newcastle were drawn away to Manchester City and Crystal Palace were drawn away to Villa, or maybe even Manchester United, despite them winning there recently, I might even change the projection to put it there, in 29.
Okay.
Possibility. It's a long distance Newcastle to Palace, or Palace to Newcastle, rather. If you can play a game at a weekend, why not play it at a weekend? There's also the possibility that it's not a TV fixture, so I don't think it's something Sky or TNT are going to be bothered about. So are they bothered that
Yeah.
it will clash with the FA Cup quarterfinals? I don't know. I'm just saying, I think the possibility of this, we're talking is sort of like 2 to 5% of Newcastle Palace staying there in 29. But it is still a possibility. The FA Cup fifth round is after game week 27, before game week 28. It is only at that point that we can be sure that it's definitely a confirmed blank fixture, or unless obviously if they give it a new date between now and then.
Okay.
It's still a possibility, but it is obviously more likely that Newcastle Palace will probably be jumped up to game week 33.
They haven't made an announcement yet, which means they're clearly thinking about it. Otherwise, they could easily have just taken it out of the schedule as it stands right
It
now.
has been taken out the schedule
Oh,
in
has
terms
it?
of FPL's website. But
Okay, I
people have
looked at
asked
the
me this. So
weekend,
like,
it hadn't, but
a few people, I think Saturday night they took it out. A few
Right.
people said, "Oh, it's been taken out. Is that it now?" And I was think it will get taken out, obviously, because Newcastle are in the Carabao final, but it could get put back. It's a small possibility. It is way more likely that Newcastle v Crystal Palace is played in one of the midweeks later in the season. So let's say that they put it in the open midweek of game week 33. That's the most likely at the moment, I think. Now, if Newcastle get to the FA Cup semis, their fixture with Ipswich also needs a range in somewhere. So you think the logical is to put it in game week 36, right? Because that's the other free midweek, No clashes with European fixtures. Again, we don't know the TV announcements for the FA Cup semi-final weekend. Newcastle Ipswich, I would suggest, probably won't get picked up. Most
Okay.
likely, it could do. Maybe they'll see the signs and think, "Oh, this is something where it could be a Champions League place against the side fighting for relegation," and put it near the end. But he probably doesn't get picked up, I think. So let's just say hypothetically, Newcastle against Palace goes into 33.
Yep.
Newcastle then obviously have a double there. They'd obviously then blank in 34. And then Newcastle Ipswich fixture goes to 36, and they also double in 36. So you've got Newcastle double 33, blank 34, single fixture 35, double 36. And then their FA Cup final fixture, should they make the final, presumably moves to the midweek
But
afterwards.
they,
That's at
oh, that,
Arsenal.
okay. So this is in a scenario they make the FA Cup final, which means that Palace 29 is off the cards anyway.
Well, it wouldn't even need to, because at the point you arrange it, they don't have to reach the semi-finals, right? So to be
Yep.
honest, whether they'd reach the final or not, like, kind of neither here nor there. Now, in game week 36, Newcastle was scheduled to play Chelsea. What's the problem with Chelsea, Suj?
Manchester United, oh, Conference League.
Conference League.
Mm.
So if Chelsea is still in the Conference League semi-final, Newcastle would presumably play Chelsea in game week 36 on the Sunday. We're now talking about maybe bumping the Ipswich fixture back to 36 and putting that on the Wednesday. Then the possible final of the FA Cup on the Saturday. Then they'd have to play at Arsenal on the Tuesday or the Thursday afterwards. I doubt it'll be the Wednesday, because that's the Europa League final. So they could
Right.
end up playing Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, with the Saturday game being the FA Cup final. That's not right.
Yeah, it's a bit harsh.
So my kind of point being is,
And
under
the
that,
league games are their Champions League rivals in the table in Chelsea and Arsenal.
well, not Arsenal, not a rival.
No, but it's
Arsenal
still
are going
top
to finish in the
four.
top two, aren't they?
Yeah, probably.
But it's a tough game.
It probably.
Even if Arsenal were
It's
out the Champions League and have come
it's not
first,
easy
second,
games either side of that. Yeah, I get
and
that.
I'm
It's difficult.
sure Arsenal will be motivated for their last home game, and I'm sure they'll be particularly motivated, having just lost to Newcastle in the semi-finals, to put on a performance against them. If they can fuck up the end of their season, I'm sure they'll try and do it.
Mm.
So, with that in mind, we've always gone down the route of the path of saying, well, ideally, the Premier League don't want to clash with UEFA, right? That's kind of
Hmm.
always been kind of an unwritten agreement, right? It's part why I say Everton Liverpool this Wednesday and Villa Liverpool next Wednesday kick off at 7:30. They can't kick them off any earlier, really, because of people's work habits in this country, etc., etc. But they want people to obviously turn off and then put the Champions League on afterwards, right?
Yeah.
That's what UEFA want. And it's also worth saying it's only the next week that there's a clash with obviously City Madrid. So if you're watching Villa Liverpool next week, the full time you put in the rest of Madrid City on, aren't you? That's what most people listening or watching this will do. I should imagine it's what I will be doing if I don't just choose to watch City Madrid, by the way, instead. So, but we have seen fixtures brought forward. The irony of obviously Liverpool losing yesterday is there was no need to bring the fixture forward. Now, I know we can't be hindsighty about it, but I don't think there was ever a need to bring the Villa Liverpool fixture forward. We knew the Fulham Tottenham problem, but for me, there was never an issue with having to bring Liverpool versus Aston Villa or Arsenal versus Chelsea forward. They could have been played later. I'm absolutely convinced with that. I think what happened a little bit with Villa Liverpool was Liverpool obviously played Tottenham in 34, and Villa are obviously scheduled to play Tottenham in game 37.
Hmm.
So I think they was thinking, well, this is still a consequence problem for Tottenham if Tottenham go out, that Tottenham might
Right.
still need to move these fixtures. But then again, as I said, it was only the Fulham Tottenham fixture that was a real problem that you'd have to look at and go, right, that needs to be brought forward. So my question to you is this, right? Game week 36, absolutely open to put that Newcastle Ipswich fixture there, but it doesn't look good from a scheduling perspective for Newcastle under that circumstance. So why not just play it in 35?
Hmm.
If it's a non-TV game, play it in 35. Yeah, it clashes with a Champions League semi-final. That actually almost makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would say so.
This is why I think Game Week 36 might have no fixtures.
No additional fixtures other
At
than
the,
the FA Cup finalists.
at the moment, I've got Newcastle v Ipswich projected to go into Game Week 36. I think that's the right
Right.
place to put it at this moment. But I do think if we got to the stage where we're at the quarterfinals, Newcastle have obviously reached the semis and their games postponed. If Newcastle Palace has not been arranged earlier, Newcastle Palace say goes 33. It could do it the other way around, by the way. It could be Newcastle Ipswich 33 and they hold back Newcastle Palace. If they can see the problem with Newcastle possibly having to play Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, and then maybe Tuesday around an FA Cup final, surely someone at Newcastle is going to speak up and go, can we just play in the midweek before? Logically, that makes so much more sense for Newcastle.
Okay.
So I think game week 36 could be just a normal game week. Now, on the other games that we project to be postponed from game week 34, City v Villa, I can't tell you whether it will come forward or go back. But for similar reasons, under that circumstance, one of them is probably going to be in the final, if not both. I think it's bring it forward. I think there's an intent where possible to try and leave game week 36 free and open. And the other thing I've considered is, could they just stretch out that week where it becomes a little bit like the FA Cup fourth round has this week, where it's gone like Friday to Tuesday? Could they
Yeah.
just have a week of that in the Premier League where it goes like Friday to Tuesday and they put, say, 6 or 7 of those games on the TV? Liverpool play Arsenal in game week 36. Now, to be honest, for those two clubs who probably be, there's every chance they'll be in Champions League semi-finals the midweek before. Do you know what? The best thing in terms of for Liverpool Arsenal would be put it on a Monday night.
Yeah.
Give them 5 days rest. It's arguably going to be the biggest game of the season. We would play it on Saturday 5:30 when one of them's playing the Champions League on the Wednesday. It'll probably be the Sunday 4:30. But I don't think we should rule out the possibility they go, actually, we're going to put it on the Monday or the Tuesday and make it kind of like a really big deal, an event.
But the Sunday 4:30 slot is a big deal, and they're really
Yeah, but
it's just
if they put Liverpool v Arsenal, even if they moved it towards the Tuesday, which they can do, right? Because obviously those two teams now don't have to worry about rearranged fixtures. And obviously in the case if Palace reached the semi-final, I think their fixture, Arsenal's fixture with Palace, would also be brought forward to 33. You could slide the fixtures along, have Arsenal Liverpool on the Tuesday. Neither will play on the league till at least the following Sunday. And it's a big event. I mean, no other football around the world basically on the Tuesday night.
yeah, it would be definitely a showcase kind of
Because one of the
match.
arguments, and this is absolutely right, it's one of the things we've always screamed about in terms of the scheduling and where fixtures may go, is the impact of TV. So if I'm looking at it now and going, well, there's 3 fixtures getting pulled out of game week 34, and I would say probably at least Bournemouth United, probably, and City Villa definitely, will probably be selected for TV. You could think, well, Bournemouth United's got to go into 33, as we've discussed. So put City Villa in 36. I'm not convinced that's how it'll work. I could see that being right. Those are the 2 TV midweek fixtures on the Tuesday and the Wednesday in 33, and they move out game week 36. Is it also possible that a game could get brought forward from 37 to 36 with no need for it to be postponed? Let me give you an example that Villa are out of the FA Cup
Yeah.
and Tottenham progress to Europa League quarterfinals. Could Tottenham request that their game with Villa is brought forward to 36?
Yeah, but I don't think they would do that. Is there any precedent for a club asking for a fixture to be changed?
But in the case of Tottenham here, what you'd be asking them to do is, so Tottenham have now got quite a clear run of midweeks, obviously other than these Europa games, right? So Tottenham would play on the Europa League final on the Wednesday. Stop laughing, right? It's a possibility. Tottenham playing Europa League on the Wednesday, but you want them to play on at Villa on the Sunday. Right, again, for the integrity of the league, is it not better to bring it forward to the midweek before and give an English team playing in the final 7 days before the final rather than 3 days? What do you expect Tottenham to do at Villa in 37 if they're in the Europa League final? I get it, we might need 3 points to stay up, but we probably won't, right? So again, we're picking a reserve team. This is no good for the league, mate.
Yeah, I get that, but then it's giving you guys an advantage
An
against the
advantage for
team
what?
that- Well, I suppose look, the fixtures are scheduled to be played when they're scheduled to be played. Moving a fixture to give you an advantage so you can play a stronger team in the Villa game because you're in the Europa League final. I don't know. Need to think about it.
The reason, by the way, I say the Sunday, the promise on game week 37 is that there will not be a Friday night game and there will not be any other games on a Saturday to leave the day free for the FA Cup final.
Right.
That's why in game week 37 currently all the fixtures are scheduled for the Sunday.
For Sunday. Right.
But
Makes
what I'm
sense.
saying is, under this circumstance, that's batshit, isn't it? Really, if you went, right, Villa Tottenham's going to be the Friday night, and then Tottenham have
Then you've
potentially
got
got
enough
five
time
days.
for Europa
Correct.
League.
But they're saying that's not
But if
going to
it's
happen.
Sunday, then okay. If it's Sunday, Wednesday, then it's harsh. But I guess that's the price of success, James, when you've got so many games to play.
Yeah. I mean, listen, again, it's what I'm
Small
probably more trying
possibility.
to highlight here is, and could this also happen with, well, we've already said Chelsea, Man United would probably have to be brought forward to the midweek before. Is this another route to put fixtures in game week 36? Because the other things that can also move from game week 37 to the midweek of 36 is whatever is postponed for the final. So, an example I'd give you at the moment would be currently, I would say projected FA Cup final at this moment would be Manchester City against Newcastle. They're the top two in the bag. So
Yep.
Newcastle go to Arsenal, Manchester City go to Bournemouth. Could those fixtures be brought forward from the weekend of 37 to the midweek of 36 and played before the final? I don't think that's ideal, but is that possible? And under that circumstance, you'll have four teams will double in 36, then blank in 37. Maybe we're reading the room wrong for when we need that free hit.
True.
Now, there's no way of knowing that till game week 33 has been and gone.
So, like for example, Brighton make the final. That's a Liverpool game.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
they're
yeah. So
brought
the
forward.
same
So,
thing. If you're going, oh, Liverpool can't, obviously Liverpool double this, but if you say, oh, Liverpool can't double again, it's absolutely possible to have Arsenal at home and Brighton away in 36.
which is not the best double, be honest, but also still you're going to want some Liverpool if they're
If they
doubling.
need points for the title, mate.
Then they go for it. I get it. Title might be wrapped up, and they might have Champions League on their minds. Who
I
knows?
do I do think it's more likely that any fixture that is postponed for the FA Cup final stays in 37 and is played in the midweek afterwards. But we can't rule out this as a possibility. And obviously, as already discussed, we know if United are still in Europe, the Chelsea United game would have to be brought forward under that circumstance.
So what does that mean as it stands right now? What do you predict game week 33 as the biggest double to look like?
So currently, six teams projected down to double. And I'll read these all out. So Villa home to Newcastle, away to City. Yay.
Okay,
Bournemouth away to Palace, at home to Manchester United.
not bad considering the form. If they're still in the same form then that they're in now, that's not a bad double.
Palace, Bournemouth at home, Newcastle away. Though that could easily be in its place. Ipswich, Arsenal at home, Newcastle away. Sounds even worse. Manchester City, Everton away, Villa at home. Manchester United, Wolves at home, Bournemouth away,
Not bad.
Newcastle, Aston Villa away, and then one of Palace or Ipswich at home. Importantly, on the current projection, of those six teams, all of the above would be projected to blank in the following game week 34, except for the examples of Crystal Palace, basically. And the Crystal Palace fixture is, by the way, is Arsenal away, would be the projection. So yeah, they've still got a fixture, but one of the worst. And that's why we've always said about the careful management of 33 and 34. Yes, I absolutely agree. We were sitting here 2 weeks ago and we had 10 teams projected to double in 33. Today, that's only six. But still the management between 33 and 34 is still going to be tough.
So
Because
wildcarding in 34 looks pretty tidy because I could get rid of all my Liverpool up to 33 and get them back for 30 or get them back for 34. Chelsea get them back for 34. I
let's be
want
real
them in the
about
lead
this,
up.
right? If you've got doubles in one game week and blanks in the next game week, what's the ideal scenario? A team with a double and then a team that plays again. Right. At the moment, we're saying Crystal Palace is the only likely projection of that. Double in 33 and then play 34. But the 34 is away to Arsenal. So how good do you feel about it? Before, we had Newcastle projected to double 33 and play 34. And that would have been, as we said, Villa and Palace and then Ipswich at home. So you go, right, free Newcastle, really happy to carry that if I'm short of chips. That's off the table. But what has happened is For someone like me who doesn't have the chips, what I do have is single game week players now confirmed with good fixtures. So Liverpool now play Leicester away in 33, Tottenham at home 34. We know that. So am I looking 33? I need doublers when I got like Liverpool away to Leicester. No, that's fine. And 34 is obviously great cover. We now know Chelsea will play Everton in game week 34. 33 is not brilliant away to Fulham, but they've got good fixtures before that as well.
Ipswich at
Crystal
home.
Palace wouldn't be projected to make the semi-finals as it stands. They're very capable of doing it, by the way. But obviously, if they don't make it, Arsenal Palace stays in 34, and you've got 4 good fixtures of Arsenal before 34 as well. So someone like me is going to go, I think, right, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool would potentially be quite important to me just to carry through. And I can obviously add my sprinkling of players of doubles, bits of Bournemouth, bits of Newcastle, but I wouldn't be going hell for leather for it. Because if I free hit it in game week 34 and I've got Liverpool at home to Tottenham, Arsenal at home to Palace, Chelsea at home to Everton, yeah, I'm probably picking 9 players for those 3 teams under that circumstance. Disagree?
No, I agree.
And you could probably fit, I would say, Salah, Palmer, and Saka into that quite comfortably.
Yeah, I think this is quite interesting, really, because I think there is a case to free for me with my free hit. I could free hit in 33, get a team of 11 doublers, but not bench boost in that week because if I dead end towards 33, it kind of means getting rid of my Liverpool and getting rid of my Arsenal and getting rid of my Chelsea, who I want coming out the other side potentially, and I'll lose a lot of value in it. But my problem with my Liverpool and that kind of thing is it's losing the value either side. Yeah, even Newcastle, they've got Villa. So the double would be Villa and Palace. If they're out of the FA Cup, then it's Ipswich after, isn't it? That they would have in 34.
Yeah.
And Ipswich would need to be out of the cup as well. So I don't want to lose my Newcastle assets around then either.
No, I'd be very careful with Newcastle. Someone like Gordon is more expendable. For me, I'm a million up on Isak. And I know something like Watkins really appeals this week. Don't see me, not from Isak anyway. I wouldn't be cutting him at the moment. And also, I know it's unlikely, but how gutted would I be if I sold Isak and then Newcastle Palace went back into 29 for someone like me who doesn't have the chips to cover it? And
Makes
there's also
sense.
that for those who are committed to free hit 29, I would ask you if there's 9 fixtures in 29, do you still want a free hit? When it's just Villa Liverpool missing. Presumably you can bench your free Liverpool and just sell whatever you've got Villa, right? If that's your
Yeah,
worst case
or
scenario.
yeah, something like that. I'd find a way to get through, even if it meant going into it with 10. To be honest with you, James.
Surely you wouldn't free hit if there was 9 fixtures.
No, I wouldn't.
No.
No.
And obviously you could sell, I mean, in terms of saying we'll just bench your Liverpool, there's definitely people who will sell Salah to get Haaland in 29, right?
Yeah, that would be the fear in 29 is I wouldn't do that personally. I don't think you would either, would you, in that situation? Sell Salah to get Haaland.
I mean, I wouldn't have activated 15 transfers in one go, Suj, but yeah, things happen sometimes, don't they? Let's talk about usage of some of these chips. And so let's do free hit as we're covering it. So I think there are kind of 3 main options here. Cover 29, blank. Cover 34, blank. Or obviously the double 33. With the addition of, yes, it could be that unexpectedly towards the end, we might look at game week 36 and be like, it's blank. There's no fixtures going there. And then they bring the fixtures forward from the FA Cup final to that midweek. And suddenly you've got 4 teams with a double who then blank the following week in 37. But I don't think we can prepare for that eventuality. So I think realistically, each 29, 34, 33. Now, the discussion we've had on both of these kind of maneuvers here is kind of a little bit down to where you are at with your own team and how you feel going forward. So to go back to 29 as a point, who would you say has got the best fixtures in 29 as it stands, Suj?
So City,
Yeah.
because it's a home fixture, I would give them that.
Yeah.
Man United with Leicester.
Yeah.
Considering the weekend's fixture where Leicester dominated the second half, I'm going to say Manchester United.
Yeah.
Possibly, probably, I'd have a bit of Wolves with Southampton. I think
Yep.
Cunha or something like that.
Yep.
I think the Everton West Ham game's a toss up.
Yep.
So not really looking at that. I think the Tottenham Fulham game, I'd say Fulham,
Obviously.
but I think it's not like I think the Fulham Tottenham and the Bournemouth Brentford games are fairly even.
Yeah. That all
I would
Fulham's
say Fulham and Bournemouth are obviously favourites in both of those two respective fixtures, but
Fulham.
I don't think they're like stand out.
No, I mean Fulham would highly likely be. I mean, one they're a better team at the moment. There's no point in arguing about that. The Tottenham game at Fulham would be 3 days after Tottenham's Europa League's last 16 second leg, and
Right.
we know that's going to happen. We don't know yet, by the way, if that's going to be like a 12:30 kickoff, a 1:30 kickoff, or a 7 o'clock kickoff. It would be favourable for Tottenham, I guess, if it's 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. But it is at home, that last 16 game beforehand. And I guess if we did really well in the first leg beforehand, it might be easy. The chances are we're going to play Galatasaray or Sociedad. So it's going to be a tough tie. And it, by the way, the chances are Manchester United play the other one. It's worth noting in terms of Europa League as it stands. That's a little bit to be determined between now and next Friday is the draw for the next stage of Europa League. I would say best fixtures 29. Yeah, City against Brighton. I'd throw Forest in there away to Ipswich at the moment. I'd say Bournemouth at home to Brentford with the way they're playing. Fulham against Tottenham. United against Leicester. Yeah, Wolves against Southampton. Now, of those teams, I think the majority of them have good fixtures afterwards. So City go from 29 to 30 to play Brighton in 29, and then they got Leicester at home 30. I can't really escape the idea of that. I get Haaland for Brighton at home 29, but then I don't have him for Leicester at home in 30.
Yeah.
Now if you're free hitting in 29, you're obviously going to put Haaland in if he's fit.
Then Man United away, and then Crystal Palace at home, and then Everton away. It's a prolonged decent run.
And exactly that. And it could run towards obviously Manchester City double game week in 33 as currently projected. For Nottingham Forest, I would say it's kind of a mixed bag. But if you look at their three home games afterwards, United, Everton, Brentford, and then actually the two away games, Villa, Tottenham, might both have distractions in terms of other competitions. So, for example, the game at Tottenham, again, might come 3 days after Tottenham have a Europa League quarter final. For Villa, it's obviously potentially Champions League games, a Champions League quarter final straight afterwards, maybe from the 31 fixture. Bournemouth, good run of fixtures, well documented, pretty much from now up till the double game week of 33. Fulham is tough afterwards. Manchester United, I would say, is tough afterwards. Wolves have a great run of fixtures afterwards. Pretty much starts around about 28. Wolves fixture 28 to 34 is a joke and potentially a good one for me to run through with the likes of Cunha and Aït-Nouri. So I look at that and I think for someone like me who doesn't have the chips to cover it, if I start looking at City, Bournemouth, Brentford, I'm very happy. City, Bournemouth, Wolves, sorry. I'm very happy to carry assets from those teams afterwards if I run through. Other
Okay.
teams like oh yeah, Fulham against Tottenham. Okay, I'm going to go Jimenez. I'm going to go Robinson. Yeah, but then they've got Arsenal, Liverpool 30-31. So they'll appeal less to me.
Right.
I know if I come, it's not to say I won't buy one of them, but if I commit to it, I'm probably committing to going to something else afterwards on the other side. So I think that's a mixed bag. Also, I would say if you're sitting there at the moment and you've got treble Newcastle, treble Liverpool,
Like
bit of
me.
Villa, and
Like me.
also on top, have you got any Palace?
No.
So Palace have look at Palace's two fixtures either side of the blank.
And this week, Everton at home. This is one of the things I did look at in terms of if I'm gonna free hit in 29, I can buy Palace now. Whereas if I don't, and I'm going to try and run through, I think people will avoid buying Palace because they blank in 29 now, when actually they're a go and get right now, aren't they? With their fixtures, Everton
Eh,
at home, Ipswich at home, Southampton away. Three good fixtures in the next few.
Despite it potentially giving me a complete headache, I may get Mateta this week. Is a possibility. It gives me a headache because it's just another player I'm adding in who blanks, right? If I go Jackson to Mateta and I don't have the chips, Jackson is available for me in 29, isn't he? No, it's
Yep.
Arsenal away. Yeah, but also he does play Leicester and Southampton before that as well. So it's kind of, but I do agree. Mateta for Everton, Fulham, Villa, Ipswich, great. And then on the other side of the blank, Southampton away and Brighton at home, we know is obviously a big game for them as well.
Yep.
So Palace's fixtures, other than 29, pretty good. In fact, ironically, if the Newcastle fixture did go back in now, it would probably push me into buying Mateta. But then I wouldn't expect so much away to Newcastle. So why not just do it anyway? I might go a couple short in 29. Just go, yeah, do you know what? Not
That's
that
it. What I
fast.
mentioned earlier. Like if I end up with 10, so be it. But saving the free hit for something else later might be even more beneficial.
But point being is, I think if you're sitting there, there's every chance you're sitting there with treble Liverpool, you've committed to a couple of Villa, you've got, I don't know, Isak and Hall, for example. And then if you're sitting there with Mateta and Henderson or Munoz and Eze, like it's very conceivable someone's listening and watching and going, bloody hell, I've got like 10 blankers in 29. You'd look at that and go, is the problem going to be worse for you maneuvering 33 and 34? I would say no. So there's definitely a group of people that it'll be better to free hit in 29.
Yep.
Completely understand that. And the idea, like I said, the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, even though they wouldn't double in 33, most likely, probably have good fixtures in 33 and 34. How many times have we been there? I mean, different example, right? We projected Newcastle to double in 33, Villa away and then Palace at home or Ipswich at home, right? It's reasonable as a double. But if the FA Cup semi-finals on a Saturday, which it may well be, particularly if Manchester United are in a different semi-final, it almost has to be, then is there any chance that Isak gets rested for the midweek game against Palace or Ipswich?
Possible.
Maybe you don't even have to double.
Possible.
Yeah, factor that in. The teams that double in 33 have possibly got an FA Cup semi-final a couple of days later. But ultimately, it will still probably look the right one for a bench boost. I think 33, 34 has become a little easier to manage as long as you don't commit to too many doublers and go against too many blankers. But of course, the amount of free transfers you've got also has a big bearing on this, right? So if you're landing nice, most people I think will look at their 33 teams now, and if they've been looking at say the projections that we've done on say FPL team, you've gone, oh, I've just lost a load of Liverpool players from my projections for 33 doublers. Probably doesn't look quite as good, but it's still lesser away.
Yep.
And now you've got Tottenham at home 34. So it's easier to run through, isn't it? It's got to be.
Yep.
So I think for those who did want to free hit 29, it looks a little bit more enticing now. I would still, my general advice on this would be prepare to run through it rather than run against it. Because, for example, if Newcastle Palace did go back in there, you ain't free hitting.
Yeah, I'm
It's
with you on that.
unlikely, but don't 100% commit to it would be my advice on that. I would be planning to run through it at this moment. What do you think about actually free hitting in 33?
I'm
Because that
tempted.
that looks better now as well.
I'm tempted. I'm tempted. The problem with free hitting in 33 is it then raises the question, when am I using my bench boost? Which is fine because 36, like we said, might have enough doubles in there for me to use my bench boost. And I can wildcard in 35 or something to get set up for it. But then what that means is I've got to figure out when am I using my Assmen, which will be pretty much now. Pretty much
Ultimately,
now.
as it stands on the projections, 33 is the best week to free hit. It's the best week to bench boost, and it'll be arguably the best coverage for the assistant manager chip as well.
Hmm.
But you can't play them all there.
No.
So I would say right now, the best play for a free hit, probably. So if you've used assistant manager and you've used bench boost, specifically those two, I would be strongly
Oh,
thinking about free
33,
hitting in
surely.
33.
Yeah, yeah.
Strongly. But not all these chips can be played in the same week. It's obvious, right? And ultimately, what you're going to do, oh, yeah, well, I want to attack 33 aggressively. And then what? Leave bench boost for what? It depends what your team layout is, right? I think there'll be some that must land with a decent looking bench boost this week. So
Yeah.
I've only put 2 weeks as bench boost opportunities at this moment, as far as I can see that other people's teams might look specifically good for a certain week. But I put 33 as the obvious, and I put now.
Hmm.
And the reason I put now is I already had people asking me last week about like benching players like Boomo and Wood. Bloody hell. Where are we at? Now, I think what's happened is a lot of people can't consider it because a lot of people sitting there with Flappy on the bench.
Well, here's the thing where I'm up. So my bench as it stands right now, and this is not ideal, I get it, is Hall, Gordon, and Rico Lewis. Now, Hall and Gordon I've benched because of the fixture, which is City away, right? Though we've talked about how they could do some real damage against City away. I might have if I got confirmation that Flecken was out, because my reserve keeper is Valdemarson sitting on my bench, and West Ham away is not too bad a fixture. Say I got confirmation Flecken was out, and I decided to get Martinez in for the double because I've got so many free transfers. Suddenly I've got a playing bench goalkeeper that I didn't have for ages of Valdemarson that I've lucked into. I could consider it at that point, trying to use my transfers to give myself the bench for this week. But I feel like I'd be forcing my transfers this week to force a bench boost
Don't do that.
for single game week players. I'm not in a desperate situation where I need to do that. So
No. But if you were sitting there, if you had two, so let's just say you hypothetically are looking at, and because the Villa double's gone in there now, because I think the appeal of the Villa players has obviously gone up with people like, well, obviously can't bench Rodgers. Surely you weren't benching Rodgers against Ipswich anyway. But people will now be looking at their bench, and if you've got something like, oh fuck, I'm not going to play Cliver at Southampton, or I'm not going to play Boomo at West Ham or Wood at Fulham. If I've got two of them type of players, I'd be looking at this going, is this the right opportunity? Because although there might be a consequence of acting towards that now, one of the things we maybe don't discuss and should ask ourselves more is we've just said 33 is arguably the best for all the chips. If we just pick, I'm going to use every chip in 1 week, but arguably go 33 for the lot. Assistant manager can maybe debate. But bench boost almost takes priority because you go, I've got to do it in the best or biggest double, right? So it supersedes the others because you can still use the free hit to a good advantage somewhere else. Right? Bench boost, if it lands like it's landed for you now, is useless, right? You've
yeah,
got two Brentford goalkeepers and City Newcastle players playing against each other. It's not good, right? But which chip would you hold as greater value?
out of bench boost and
Free hit.
in theory bench boost because it gets me the most additional fixtures. I can get 8 extra fixtures if I have double game week for all of my bench.
But subject to what your team is, Suj, you might be able to get 11 extra fixtures
Well,
with a free hit.
so that's the unknown with the free hit. Whichever gets me the most fixtures, asterisk quality fixtures, because there's no point in just filling it up with crap. But yeah,
Let's
could
go
be
back
either.
to let's go back to the 6 teams that we got projected double in 33, right? There's a little bit of Villa coverage now, but I've said this a few times. I think after the double, they're arguably expendable, right? Bournemouth, clearly there's going to be interesting. I don't think people are going to have treble ups though.
No,
Not
unlikely.
many, but a few maybe.
Unlikely. Yeah.
Palace, good fixtures, but I don't think there's huge coverage at the moment. A lot of people maybe have got one. City, there's little coverage at the moment. United, there's basically no coverage bar a few Bruno Fernandes owners out there. Newcastle, there's good coverage of, but Newcastle got some bad fiction in the immediate. Also good again after blank game with 29. I look at them 16. I think, am I carrying the majority of my team from those 6 teams? Probably not.
No.
So I think it's something to consider. If you land really nice this week, look at it and go, I don't know how to quantify this, is the honest answer. But if you were to bench boost now and then play your free hit aggressively in 33 and it works really well for you, and that's the best path, almost you could gain so much that whatever you did on the bench boost might even be irrelevant
Yep.
if you got it right. So I would say don't necessarily handicap yourself to that with a bench boost if you have an opportunity. In your case, Suj, it's not on.
Nah.
But I think people should consider that and obviously look at other weeks. Please use a tool like FPL Team and have a run through weeks. And it might just land for you. Go, hey, do you know what? Game week 28 looks great for me. I've got treble Chelsea at home to Leicester, and I'm thinking of benching the likes of Colwell, for example. Maybe it lands quite nice for you. Please have a look at alternative weeks. But ultimately, 33 is highly likely to be the best for bench boost. If it's not, he's going to land, it'll be 36 instead, won't it? Triple captaincies.
TC.
So options based on the projections, and I'm only going to go through 3 players here. If you want to go through more, be my guest. Salah now, clearly, is an option for 25. I think other than that, you're looking at home to Southampton 28.
Yep.
Which does have the added advantage now of knowing that the weekend before Liverpool won't play. So it's unlikely Salah would be rested for that fixture. It might have been one
the weekend before or the weekend
on.
after. Sorry, Southampton, because they're blanking 29.
No, but the FA Cup weekend is, well, they won't blank the weekend after because it's Carabao final, right?
Oh, sorry, they're in the final.
The weekend before Southampton's now FA Cup 5th round, so they don't play.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a breather there between them playing Newcastle,
the 1st of
ironically,
March weekend,
and then their Champions League last 16 game in the midweek before Southampton.
Okay, so that's a pretty tidy, interesting fixture potentially.
Possibly, if Liverpool played Wednesday, Tuesday in the Champions League either side of Southampton, that would be enough to put me off, I think.
Okay.
The robot, Leicester at home, game week 30, is kind of already alluded to. Right? Well, going to free hit Haaland versus Brighton 29, then not owning versus Leicester in 30. I think that's probably the best single game week fixture left for Haaland. You could make a case for game week 36 away to Southampton, maybe. And of course, there is a chance that City would double in that week 36. You could have Southampton away and Villa at home or Bournemouth at home as an alternative. But again, then that would be possibly straight after a Champions League semi-final, should they be fortuitous to make it that far, or the second game is 3 days before an FA Cup final. Again, could there be a rest? Possibly.
Yeah.
Haaland scheduled to play Everton away and projected Villa at home in 33.
It's not bad. It's not a bad double.
Particularly if they were out the Champions League.
Sure.
They're still going to want to qualify again. I don't think there's any stage where we sit here and go, right, when City play Villa in the midweek of 33, they've got top 4 wrapped up.
No chance,
I don't think, frankly, they're good enough. Isak.
There's
a few here for Isak, and there's plenty of potential opportunities here, but some of them are potential. So 33, Newcastle are highly likely to double, right? So it's Villa away, then maybe Palace at home. Ipswich at home would make that more attractive. But again, there is the caveat. It could be Ipswich at home on a Wednesday and have got an FA Cup semi-final 3 days later. That might not be great. 36, similar problem potentially. Chelsea at home, Ipswich at home. Now, if it landed like that and they weren't in the FA Cup final, very attractive. Particularly as Chelsea might play the European semi-final 3 days earlier. So it could land pretty good. 2 games at St James's makes him interesting anyway.
For sure.
But as I said earlier on the pod, I think there's a chance we get a random midweek for additional Newcastle fixture. I think 35 is the most likely as it stands, which would be Brighton away and Ipswich at home. And I think the caveat to that is if it lands specifically in 35, I don't think there's concern about rotation.
Okay.
So that would appeal. Brighton away and Ipswich at home, if that was it, I think would look great. I think 31 could appeal as well, because under that circumstance, it's something like Leicester away. Well, in fact, it's not. It would be Leicester away and Palace at home. And I think that's a possibility if they deem, maybe say after Newcastle maybe winning the FA Cup 5th round, and they go, right, we need to leave the midweek 33 free for Newcastle Ipswich. We want to get the Newcastle fixture in earlier. Again, Newcastle Palace, not in Europe. So in theory, it can go anywhere. I don't think we should rule out as an impossibility that Newcastle Palace goes into game at 28. Okay. I don't think that's impossible. It's why I don't really want to sell my Newcastle players till I've got all the information, which is going to be basically after the FA Cup 5th round. Someone like Gordon, as I said, I'm happy to cut. Hall and Isak, no. What do you like best of the triple captaincies there? It's clear for me which one.
Salah.
What now?
Do you know what? I'm going to say yes, but I actually like Salah Southampton at home, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's Salah now.
I think because of the extra fixture, and he's just shown what he can do in one fixture, and then anything you get from Everton now really is icing on the cake rather than necessary. And he can do the business against Wolves, and then whatever you get from Villa is additional. Yes. I think both of Salah's, even the Southampton at home, are really good. I think those are the ones I
You
have
can,
the most
I
faith in.
think, really importantly, I think you'll play the games. I think previously there was a little bit concerned that the Wolves game might be that, oh, is that just say if, for example, if he played yesterday against Plymouth, you'd be like, hang on a minute. I think with 25 and then the two fixtures afterwards, you can block Liverpool's fixtures. So it's Everton now Wednesday. Then they play Sunday and Wednesday. And then afterwards, they're 26, 27 fixtures, Sunday and Wednesday.
Right.
I don't think there's a concern.
Okay.
I think he'll play. I think he'll play close to 180. Wolves at home is a great fixture. Villa, as I mentioned earlier, I think have enough defensive issues. Very strong at home. They've lost one home game all season, Villa, which was to Arsenal, and that includes their Champions League games against the likes of Bayern and Juventus as well. So they're strong there. But even last night, as shit as my team was, we had some chances.
Okay.
I think it will end up being, as I said, Mings and Disasai at centre back. Left back, probably Dean. Right back is probably the boy Garcia again. I think there's enough vulnerability in that in terms of like Mings. Mings is important to them because he can add the leadership to it. He'll need to talk the rest through it. But I wouldn't be put off about Salah, having Salah away to Villa. The Villa fans
Okay.
will tell you as well. They always concede. I was thinking that in the end of the game. I was thinking these always concede, except against my bloody team, obviously.
Oh, you got a goal.
Liverpool will
All
score at
good.
Villa.
Okay.
And the reality is, anyway, you want, if you're triple captain to play, I think you want the first fixture to be the best one, ideally, which it wasn't for those like me who just did it. Wolves at home would be enough, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Like the Bournemouth game's been enough. I think, yeah, if you're not using the chip on something this week, I realise people on Assmen will be blocked and some people are going to go Assmen now as well. I think at the triple captaincies, I think Salah's best. And I think that's it would be strange in a way. We're saying all the chips are best in 33. I think it would be strange if you picture a triple captaincy for them.
Yeah.
And there isn't a guarantee that there'll be another double. There's no guarantee. So I think if you're not playing a chip this week, I'd be playing it on Mo. If I hadn't played it last week, I'd be doing it now.
Okay.
Arse man, what's your thoughts?
Man. Well, I've got three windows, James: 25 to 28, 30 to 32, and 35 to 38. Three of those weeks. This week is very, very tempting. I just need to maneuver. If I play my arse man this week, how am I also going to maneuver my other transfers to get through game week 29? Because if I play my arse man this week, I'm not going to keep whoever I buy out of slot and or Emery, because really they're the two options. I'm not going to keep them for the whole 3 weeks. I'm going to use a transfer on moving them on. So yeah, I couldn't tell you out of slot and Emery. I feel like both have bankers, if you want to call it, in the first fixture. And then what you've just mentioned about Emery and Villa's home record makes me think, do I want to take the risk on Emery because of the bonus that is pretty much guaranteed that there'll be 5 places below Liverpool for the second fixture?
It
Even
doesn't
if
matter
they
because they
win.
already are. Because
Yeah,
it's whatever the difference is at
the
deadline.
start. So
So yeah, it's a bonus game confirmed.
So do I take the risk on Emery for the bonus, or do I take the safer option with Villa? I think I'd gamble on Emery, if I'm honest with you. I think it'll be Emery. Then I'd move it to Arsenal, because I think Arsenal have the potential of racking up 4 or 5 against West Ham, depending on what our defensive situation is. And then I'd move it on to Chelsea and Maresca to rack up more goals against Southampton at home. I feel like that's the path that I would take. In 26 and 27, I don't see any other bonus games that make me feel like, yeah, I want to take a gamble here. So if that's not the case, then I may as well go Emery and use the Liverpool game as my potential gamble of a bonus. I'll be honest with you, I haven't explored 30 to 32 in detail, and I haven't explored 36 to 38 in detail.
Yeah, I'm obviously in a position where I've got so little chips left. If I just want to play out on slot now, I could. And the temptation for me will be Trent obviously didn't play yesterday, and neither did Connor Bradley. So it's raised suspicions that Bradley will play on Wednesday. If Trent was to be ruled out of the next game week, I mean, if he's just doubtful, I think I'll stick with him. But if he was ruled out, of the next double, then I obviously sell him. It's like, oh, I've gone Trent to Dean Howson, for example. I've opened up the money for slot just to do it, haven't I? Without
Hmm.
having to plan for it in any way. Problem for me is I need to be careful with my transfers, and I don't think I want to link him to go, I'm going to keep slot for Man City and Newcastle. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
quite right to me.
No.
I think if I'd have activated it on slot in 24, I think I would have just stuck it with him rather than move to say Arteta in 26, unless something really opened up in 26. And I tell you what, something might. So Newcastle are sixth at the moment. Nottingham Forest are third. They play each other in game week 26. Nottingham Forest will definitely be third. There's no doubt about that. Bournemouth trail Newcastle by a point. Bournemouth go to Southampton. Newcastle go to Man City. There's every chance Newcastle drop to seventh for grade.
Hmm.
Villa obviously have the double. They're 4 points behind Newcastle. They've probably got to win both. But if they did, you might land with, and this is the irony of this, if you went all in on Emery, right, and I guess under that circumstance, you want them to probably win twice, even against the Liverpool players you own because of the potential for the bonus, right? Goal difference wise, Villa are well behind Newcastle, so they do need to win twice to jump them. But under that circumstance where you absolutely walloped a big return out of Emery, you could jump it to Eddie Howe at home to Nottingham Forest and
Okay.
it'd be bonus. But Villa would have to win both games, and Newcastle would have to fail to win at Manchester City. Bournemouth would also have to win at Southampton. But it might fall. That's what I'm saying. You can't see it now, but it might fall. You'd be like, oh my God, I'm going Eddie Howe for a bonus at home to Forest.
Hmm.
Because that's ideal, isn't it? We spoke when we did this before about targeting, with all due respect, as good as they've been, the likes of Forest or Bournemouth in games where you played them at home. Ain't many tougher than going to St James's. Can I be,
Yep.
if it lands like that, Surge, I wouldn't be surprised if I just activated it myself in 26,
Just on Eddie Howe.
just on Eddie Howe.
Yep.
But then I'd be
What's
gutted. I'd be gutted if I hadn't done it on Emery. But that is if people. I've had this a few times recently. It's like, what's the maddest gamble I can have? Well, I tell you what. If you go Emery and then those results unfolded, that you could then go to Howe in 26. You might be need to be careful. You might be on free Newcastle, for example, at the moment. Then that's brilliant. Then I agree. 27, you're probably going, yeah, Maresca against Southampton. But you could chase another one. You could chase whoever's in charge of Tottenham against Man City. Or Vitor Pereira, Wolves at home to Fulham. There's another one you might want to chase in 27.
have a bit of fun with it? Yeah. I don't mind any of those. I think it's
I don't think I got the cojones to do that. I'll tell you why. Ultimately, I do not think Aston Villa will beat Liverpool.
if you had the money no object right now, Slot or Emery, which would you pick?
Me personally, I think I would have a preference to go with the security. So I would probably go slot. And then I think, yeah, I would chain on to something like Arteta and then Maresca.
Just
If
what I
if I
just
was
mentioned.
doing it
Yeah.
now.
It's a very
But
safe
but also
path,
for
isn't it?
me, because my situation's a bit cocked up, and whereas I don't have the chips and I don't have the free transfers, I don't really want to be wasting free transfers in the next 2 weeks because I still ultimately need to get through
Navigate
29,
29.
33, 34, and all that, right?
Yeah.
So I want to put someone in. I go at the moment. This is my guy. Or I look at it and go, well, if I wildcard in 35 and I can set my team properly then at that point for whatever I know is left at the end, then yeah, maybe I can go 36, 37, 38 and use my transfers for an assistant manager. Yeah, that's a possibility. That Emery to Howe and then on to, I don't know, Postecoglu or AN other or Pereira, that could be gold.
Interesting.
I don't think it will be.
What other options do you see as interesting then for Assmen?
I mean,
31 to
another one
33?
for 26 is obviously if the game goes the other way and Newcastle win at Man City, then City drop the sixth, and then you've got Guardiola as the bonus against Liverpool.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, considering the form that Liverpool are in, no thank you.
Could City beat them? Yeah, of course they can.
Of course they can. Of course they can. Listen, you and me are not going to bet on that. So
Mm. Yeah. No, not for me. But listen, the idea of having Man City with a bonus is going to massively appeal to people if that drops.
sure.
Let me put it this way. If I had the choice of activating in 26, and obviously both can't happen, but if I had the choice of Guardiola against Liverpool or Howe against Forest, I'd definitely be going Eddie Howe.
Yep. Home fixture. I mean, it's a home fixture for City as well. I get it, but Newcastle at home, I trust. Liverpool are just too good, mate. When they're on their day, they'll be able to control that game against City, I reckon. So
The only other one I was going to say I like, but people, because when people went slot last week or went Moyes and they're like looking to chain it on, it's like looking for something 26. Obviously, if that fell for Eddie Howe, that's brilliant. But otherwise, it's probably Van Nistelrooy against Brentford.
looking for the bonus, yeah.
If you're going down that route, obviously, if you have chosen your Moyes or your Emery path, I don't think in 27 you'll jump into Maresca. You're staying in and around that value, I think.
Hmm.
Plus, would you have enough faith in Chelsea anyway? Around this is definitely a period you could play it. People want to. I don't think I'm going to. And it might be that the best solution is now, but I think I'm going to wait it out and decide later in the season if I want to use it cautiously or aggressively. A few based on the projections are like 31 to 33, and this is just sticking with one manager. So Guardiola, Man United away, Palace at home, and then double of Everton away, Villa at home from 31 to 33. Newcastle. I've actually blocked four fixtures here because it could be Leicester away will happen 31, United at home 32, and then obviously the potential double Villa Palace 33. But obviously, if they didn't make the semi-finals and neither did Ipswich, could be Ipswich at home 34. So it could be either way around there. There's a potential there where you might end up with a three-game period of Newcastle attacking against Leicester and Ipswich. Also, Emery comes back around, interestingly. If you look at 31 to 33, Forest at home
Yeah.
could be bonus. Probably needs them to be eighth versus third, but it's a possibility. They then go to Southampton 32. And then again, possible bonus 33 with double of Newcastle Man City that there might be something in there. The Man City game
Okay.
would be away. But that could easily land where there's a couple of bonuses if they do really badly in this period, or it could easily land that there's no bonuses across that. Chain one to consider in terms of some premiums, maybe. It's a different idea, 33 to 35, maybe, in the event that Newcastle had an extra fixture go in the random week of, say, 35. So you could have like Guardiola double, Everton and Villa, slot against Tottenham, and then Howe for double Brighton again and Ipswich. And the reason you chain that is because under that circumstance, you wouldn't be able to go Howe double blank double. You'd want to make a transfer. You don't get five out of it. So if Newcastle double in 33 and 35, they'll blank in 34. Does that make sense? So you wouldn't just, I've got five fixtures of Howe.
Yeah, I
That's not going to
think
work.
only works for people like you, James, who have no free hit, no bench boost, and no need to use any chips between the double of 33 and the
Yeah,
blank of
but
34, because that's when you really want to be using other chips.
I still want to use this wild card though. A few others potentially. I'd say this is one I've started looking at last night. It's actually Arne slot, 32 to 34. West Ham at home, Leicester away, Tottenham at home.
Goals, goals,
No,
goals.
no doubles. But exactly that. This is interesting. What's better, those three fixtures for Liverpool or the four they've got now, which includes trips to Everton, Villa, and Man City? I don't know, man. If
Mm,
Liverpool, if
yeah,
Liverpool got if Liverpool got Arsenal chasing their tail in them three fixtures, I see Liverpool winning them three games about 10-0. Not
they
each
go for
one,
it.
by the way. I just mean as a combination across the three, with it obviously being about 7-0 against Tottenham. Arteta 31 to 33. Now, this is a specific one I think if Crystal Palace made the FA Cup semi-finals that could really appeal. So it would be Everton away, Brentford at home, and then double of Ipswich away and Palace at home. Obviously no bonuses with Arsenal, but that would be a good group of four fixtures. Similarly, Guardiola at the end, 35 to 37. Wolves at home, Southampton away, and then Villa at home, Bournemouth at home, possibly as a combination, one or the other. Sorry, to go on top of their 37 fixture. So it would be, yeah, 37, Bournemouth at home and Villa at home. Or it might be that you've got 36 double and then a single 37. Marco Silva, if you want to chase a bit of bonus, same period, 31 to 33. Liverpool at home, bonus. Bournemouth away, possible bonus. Chelsea at home, possible bonus. And that could be, should they make an FA Cup semi-final, part of a double with Southampton away, if you're
I
looking at
like
a
that.
cheaper route.
I like that more than some of the others because the Liverpool Chelsea game almost guaranteed to be bonus and home
Home, yeah. It's
fixtures.
better, yeah. Yeah, agree with that.
Mm,
Yeah, you wouldn't want like a, say like we're talking about Guardiola against Liverpool. If that was at Anfield, I'd be like, there's no way I'd like
yeah,
debate that. Oliver Glasner went mad across the doubles last year. How about this? This would be 33 to 35, quite unique. A 33 double of Bournemouth at home, Newcastle away could both be bonus. Arsenal away 34, bonus. Forest at home 35, bonus.
bonus. Yeah, so that's four potential bonus fixtures.
Yeah,
You only need,
it's in a unique period, 33 to 35, but that's four bonuses together for a half decent team,
yeah, yeah,
potentially.
yeah. Which of those are home? Bournemouth and Forest are home,
Well,
which are
yeah,
the two
the
easier
two
of
you'd
the
want the most,
four.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
a
then
really interesting time to
and
hold it
then
back for.
anything away Newcastle and Arsenal would be a bonus. You could even land something like that. That Newcastle away game might be that they rest players before an FA Cup semi-final.
Again, that would need someone who has no bench boost or free hit to use in the double game week and
Agreed.
the blank game week and so on, which is frustrating. But yeah,
Yeah, well, some of us need to think about some wild shit at the moment, Suj.
I like that
Um,
one though. I do like that one.
a few people highlighted this one for Ange. I think Ange 31 to 33 was looking maybe on, ironically, if the Liverpool fixture got brought forward. That obviously can't happen now. But you do look at things like if Tottenham have got their, we spoke about this before, if Tottenham have got their full strength team back, Nottingham Forest at home game week 33, I think there's every chance Tottenham go into the game as favourites.
Hmm.
And if you can find a bonus, what did we say it was minimum 18, 19 points from the
Can
bonus?
be. Yeah.
Right. I'm just going to
19.
get the Tottenham manager in, and it's Nottingham Forest at home, and if they win, I've got that. You're like, fucking hell, mate. You dream of that from a player, wouldn't you? So
Yeah.
why not
Yeah.
consider that for a manager who costs 1.1? Here's a different one for Ange though. And again, I'd only do this if players return quite quickly. But City at home 27, Bournemouth at home 28. Those both likely to be bonuses. Fulham away 29 could be, is unlikely to be, and I would suggest it only would be if it's previously already gone badly for Ange, so that would be very counterproductive for you. You could also do it and start with the Ipswich game, so Ipswich away 26 and then chase them next two bonuses. There is a chance that Tottenham would narrow the gap to Bournemouth where it wouldn't become a bonus match,
Okay.
but the City one definitely will be in 27. That is one for usage. Potter. I looked at this right at the end, and I'm going to list a few here. So this could be kind of 34 to 36 or 35 to 37, subject to what Brighton specifically and Nottingham Forest would maybe do in the FA Cups. But you would arguably get all four of these. So Brighton away,
Hmm.
Tottenham at home, Manchester United away, and Nottingham Forest at home. And I'd say from that you probably get two bonus, maybe three if you're lucky.
Brighton Forest, maybe Brighton Forest, Man United. Mm,
As it stands now, you get the bonus for Brighton away.
yeah.
And one more right for the end, I noted, and this is without the potential for doubles. Vitor Pereira, Brighton at home, Palace away, Brentford at home.
It's
Now,
pretty decent.
as it stands, Brighton would only be bonus, but the nearer you get to the end of the season, the more sure you can be of these things. If it was just Brighton at home, Brentford at home as bonuses, and Wolves needed the points to stay up, and
You fancy it.
Palace had nothing to play for, yeah, I don't mind chasing that sort of thing. So I don't think there's a right or wrong in terms of going aggressively for, say, like this Emery route or a different, like a Pereira at the end, or just going safer on, say, like a slot route. I do think down to personal preference. What I do know is that the later you leave it, the more idea you'll know of what you want from points from it. So if you want to swing for trees of 50 towards the end, because you're chasing someone in a mini league, you can. Right now, you don't really know how many points you need from it, I would suggest, under that sort of circumstance. You'll have a target, and I would think Ideal solution would be for me. I'd think right if I've got Liverpool 4 times across 4 fixtures, hopefully they're winning all of them, 40 to 45 points or something. That's kind of what I'd be thinking. But I think 35 would be pretty good to turn on a double. I think those who've gone the slot route will return pretty well.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm going to do it this week though, boss. I
I
don't think.
think Emery's likely for me. I think I
Yeah.
might just have a bit of fun over the next 3 weeks and go Emery. Um,
If that Newcastle Forest scenario works, like I said with Emery, if you hit the
yeah,
bonus specifically against Liverpool, it might land you to the bonus for Howe against Forest. Like if you hit that, that's wild. But Villa have to beat Liverpool for that to happen, and Newcastle obviously would have to lose at City, and Bournemouth have to win at Southampton. Villa would also have to beat Ipswich. You need 4 results to go your way, but it could be wild because under that,
none of those are unrealistic.
you've probably
Bournemouth
got
will
under that
probably beat
circumstance. Just think
Southampton.
about this. You've probably got circa 30 from memory from the double. Then you could put on, say, another circa 20 How if they beat Forest. You're on 50, one to go. That's the dream. And then at that point, you go, well, yeah, I'll just go for shitty Tottenham against Man City. If you were to hit like a Hail Mary, like a 70 pointer or something, that route, I think, is near enough your best opportunity. I don't think it's going to be for me, though, because ultimately, I do not think Aston Villa will beat Liverpool.
Okay.
Wild card.
Yes.
So ideally not now, unless if people are in massive problems, that's fine. But there's still too much information to learn in this build towards the blank. I think a few different options: 31, 32, and ideally that might be to sort of build towards a bench boost 33, or you come out the other side 34, 35. I was very much looking at 35 for me, Suj, to try and run through the doubles and the blanks, and then 35 do the M bit and probably add an assistant manager 36 to 38. But the way it's landed now, it might be that I kind of dead end more towards the doubles and carry like from those with the good fixtures in 34. I'll obviously carry 4 players who probably don't play in that week and then run it from there. That might be a possibility for me. So I do think for people in my circumstance, really short on chips, 34 as a wild card might open up because that allows the management between the doubles and the blanks. You just head towards the doublers. I don't love that, by the way. You might notice I haven't put Game Week 30 on there.
Yeah.
I'm really, really nervous about people wildcarding in Game Week 30.
This is people that are navigating game week 29, dead
Yep.
ending towards it, and then coming out of it and restocking on Newcastle, Liverpool, whoever else it might be.
I'm really nervous about it. And the reason I'm nervous about it, one, I get the appeal. You're dead end to a blank. You want to get away from your crap. I get that. We've all been here and we've all probably, majority of us have probably made this move at some point in our FPL histories. And there's a 2.5 week period to wildcard. Because international break, it's FA Cup quarterfinals the weekend after, then the midweek of 30. You every chance you're going to have a period here of 17 days to get your wild card right. Except come day 17, you may still not know what games are going well.
Right.
We can sit here and go, yeah, I think like if Man United in FA Cup semi final, I can tell you with 99% certainty Bournemouth and Man United's going into 33. I can't tell you that Man City v Aston Villa will, or Newcastle v Ipswich, or Newcastle v Palace, or any other alternative. I cannot tell you that. So you could have 17 days on a wild card and at the end still not know what the fixtures look like.
Right.
That would scare the life out of me.
Yeah, you want a bit of certainty around it when you're planning, for sure.
Well, do wild cards? These players are doubling or they're not doubling, or
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
yeah, that's not great. And we say that because as it stands, the deadline for game week 30 is the Tuesday. Okay. The FA Cup quarterfinals presumably will be played Saturday, Sunday. Very unlikely there's a Monday night game. Very, very unlikely. So the FA Cup quarterfinals probably get done on the Sunday. Draw presumably straight afterwards Sunday night. Not that that matters too much at this stage. But then you've got to get the fixtures arranged from Sunday evening to Tuesday evening's deadline to know who's doubling in 33. Tottenham going out last night has not helped with this because it's another one we could have gone. Well, if Tottenham was still in, we go, yeah, Liverpool, Tottenham's, it's got to come
It's got
forward.
to go. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If Manchester United go out between now and then, open water again, where anything could happen here. So you could think, oh, them six teams are going to double in 33, and then none of them do. That scares me. Before the 31 deadline, that's the Friday, or in fact, it won't be the Friday, almost definitely be the Saturday. You should know. Can't promise you, but you should know. I think
Not
there's
necessarily even to the extent of what week they will double
well, once you know
or just
33,
who
you
will
can have a
double.
picture of the rest, even if it's, say, like the Newcastle odd circumstance where, so will it be 35? Will it be 36? You still got kind of an understanding. You only need one half to understand the other half, right?
Yeah,
So it's like
makes
if they
sense.
announce 33, let's say City Villa gets postponed from 34. If they announce two extra fixtures for 33 and City Villa isn't one of them, it's going to 36. It'll be obvious under that circumstance. I think before 31, you highly likely would know definitively what 33 looks like. The build from there is what, 2.5 weeks to the midweek of 33 from the weekend of 31. So surely it wouldn't get left any later than that. And it's not like you've got 20 fixtures to arrange. It's only going to be a handful. But I think there's every chance for the 30 deadline you wouldn't know. I hate that. So not 30. I feel quite strongly on that.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, yeah. You want the most amount of information possible. My head's spinning, James, in the sense that I need to decide whether I'm going to hit the Assman this weekend or not. Need to have a real think about whether or not I want to do that.
Okay. I'll finish for some questions for you so you can be the genius here. See if you can work this out. Could a fixture like Chelsea versus Tottenham or Liverpool versus Everton be brought forward from the midweek of game week 30 to the quarter-final weekend and thus become a game week 29 fixture?
Well, Liverpool Everton could
So
because
so
they
can
were
Chelsea
out,
so can
and
Chelsea Tottenham.
so could Chelsea Tottenham. Like, could it? Sure, but they need to announce it pretty soon
Why?
to give the
It's,
fans notice.
it's 2 months away.
Okay,
And they're down the road from each other, both games.
that's actually true as well. There's no travel issues with either of them. Yeah, potentially.
I realize some people do fly from far, etc., etc. But they're both midweek fixtures anyway, right? So game week 30 is midweek fixtures after the FA Cup quarterfinals. So at the moment, you don't only know it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, right? The TV dates have not been announced for April yet.
Yeah,
I don't think
it
it will
could happen.
happen. I don't think it will happen, but I don't think it's impossible. And then under that circumstance, what have you got for 29? Well, you've got Chelsea and Tottenham both doubling, Liverpool with a single and Everton with a double, and the only blanker might be Villa because you might have Newcastle Palace there as well. I don't think that the reason I don't think it will happen ultimately is the idea behind the FA Cup quarterfinals was to have them on a standalone weekend, not to put other Premier League games there. But what I do think is to go back to the point in terms of the game week 30 deadline. I wouldn't be surprised if that Tuesday deadline becomes a Monday deadline and Chelsea Tottenham would say the Monday night, for example. Now, under that circumstance, I'm pretty certain it just stays game week 30. But that's no different to bringing a game forward from the Saturday to the Friday, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if it got brought forward to the weekend, it goes into 29,
The
doesn't it?
previous week. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Because I don't
I
think
don't
they're,
know. They could bring the deadline forward to the
what, from
weekend. If
Tuesday to
there's no,
Sunday?
it's not like there's other games involved. So
I don't
I think they
know.
would bring it forward to the weekend.
I don't think there's
The first
precedence.
fixture of that game week, I think they would bring it forward to that.
I don't think I've ever known them to bring a midweek deadline forward to a weekend. We've had
Yep.
Saturday deadlines brought to a Thursday one year. I think it was a Thursday fixture once, and they brought the deadline forward to a Thursday. But to move a deadline from a Tuesday to, I don't know, let's say they went to have Liverpool Everton on a Saturday lunchtime, and then
They're
all the
just
rest of the
making the game
fixtures
week
midweek.
longer. I don't think they're making the game week longer. Yeah, I'm not sure, James. I'm not sure.
Anyway, when will we know about the April TV fixtures? It's probably going to be in 2 weeks or so, towards the end of February, and at that point, you'll become pretty locked. At that point, I raised this only because it was something that occurred to me and was a conversation I had with a few other patrons. I do think it's very, very unlikely, but I also thought it was very unlikely that Villa, Liverpool, and Arsenal, Chelsea would be brought forward, and that was their plan. So I wouldn't rule it out. Will we know what game week 33 looks like at game week 30 deadline, Suj?
No.
We don't know is the answer. But you have to think, like I said, if the deadline did get put forward to the Monday and the last quarterfinals the day before, you're going to find out on the Monday. Yeah, please don't wildcard game at 30. Um, when will we know what happens to fixtures that need to move to accommodate the FA Cup final, Suj?
When will we know what the FA Cup final is? 37. Well, we'll know by it depends on Manchester United for the semi-finals of the Europa League because theirs will have to they will have to come forward. So by 34.
So 34 is the semi-final weekend. Obviously, as soon as those semi-finals are done, you obviously know which two fixtures, or it might only be one
We
fixture.
might know sooner. It depends who's in the semis, James.
No, but you can't know the impact of the FA Cup final weekend until the semi-finals are played, right?
Yeah, true. But
The
you could
reason
have
the
a bit of a
reason I
picture
highlight this is we are not projecting it right now, but we could end up with a situation where four teams double in 36 and four teams blank in 37. That is a
Okay.
possibility. I don't think that will happen at the moment, but not to the extent that I think it's very unlikely. I think it's possible. I just don't think it's logical for teams to potentially have to play 3 days before an FA Cup final. But there you go. Fixture organisation has never been my bag, really. I think we would know in the midweek pretty quickly. So I think FA Cup
Between
semi-finals be
34 and 35.
yeah. So FA Cup semi-finals be Saturday, Sunday, weekend 34. I think probably by the Tuesday, in between 34, 35, I think you'd probably know what was happening to them two final fixtures for whether they were going 36 or 37. What would you do, Serge, if you had all your chips left?
Assman now triple captain 28 on Salah. Bench boost in 33 and free hit in 34, probably.
I think if I had everything left, principally in my mind at the moment, and again, it's dependent what teams have got, but I would be triple captain Mo now. I think I would wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34, arse man between 35 and 38, and chase if I wanted to, or protect if I didn't. I think that's not necessarily the best for 33, but I think ultimately, when it comes to it, you will be drawn to use the bench boost in the week that you can maximize from your 15 players, ultimately, as we've discussed. It is probably, yes, as it stands right now, probably the best week for a free hit is 33. So if you haven't got your bench boost, then you're flipping it, aren't you? But also, some of them best assistant managers are also 31 to 33. So you're stripping away from there. For those who are really short on chips like me, who only has the assistant manager and the wild card, the honest answer is this. Right now, I can only plan very carefully with as little transfers as possible towards 29. Do not book yourself into the decision afterwards, but plan to run through it. I would suggest at least through 30 and 31. Plan that way and then move afterwards. But if you haven't got the bench boost, I mean, is there any reason wildcard in 32 rather than 33 if you don't have a bench boost? Only if I wanted to go that assistant manager like 33 to 35, like that Glasner one I said. Otherwise, it would
Yeah.
probably just wait for on the week as 33, I guess. Yeah, no decision made for me that's really short on chips. Everyone, I think, will want to use a chip in game week 33 where possible. I can't.
Cool, cool. Well, look, James, we should tell the listeners what they've got to look forward to for the rest of the week, as well as give a plug to Patreon where they can get access to the fixture planning spreadsheet, which you might have seen on screen if you're watching on YouTube and not
I,
on
I, I
the
told Nico not to
audio.
put it up this week, so
What's that?
the plan is fixture spreadsheet.
I'll find some people have to go to Patreon
I
and
think we've
listen
got
back to the
images from.
YouTube video.
I think we've got
There we go.
images from FPL team
FPL
up there,
team,
which
which
we
you
must
get
plug.
for free, the premium version of FPL team if you're a patron as well. So there you go.
Yeah, I've got two Clash of Correspondence for you next week. But firstly, for those who want more Villa, obviously Lee Jackson was on with Bradley Parker last week. So if you do want to listen back to some more Villa from that and hear Lee tell you not to buy Villa defenders, that's available from last week. I've got Man City versus Newcastle for you tomorrow. Johnny Pringle, Simon Bibby. Leicester versus Arsenal Thursday with Sam Martin and Adam Pritchard. Clayton will be with me for the Clayton and James show Wednesday. We'll include discussion on the fifth round draw. If anything changes, we will discuss it on Wednesday's podcast. We'll also be talking City, Real Madrid, amongst other things. Friday Ask James is planned for 9:30 a.m. at the moment. That's because it's a Friday deadline search. So for those on YouTube, you've got the deadline stream at 5:30 p.m. I think I've got that right on Friday. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/planetfpl. Podcasts this week include a Q&A today. Clayton and I doing UCL Fantasy tomorrow. I'm going to cry on Tottenham Arsenal on Wednesday. Clayton will probably be delighted so he doesn't have to talk about Arsenal either. Thursday, Money in Football on the failed release of the Football Manager game for 2025. And we'll also have our Game Week 25 preview podcast, the differential show, on Friday.
Good. With Patreon, not only do you get all of those additional shows, you get the spreadsheet that I just mentioned, you get prize leagues, you get a Slack community of hundreds of engaged managers to chat with, as well as other benefits. So why not support the show? Patreon.com/planetfpl if you think that we've been useful and helpful, or you just want to come and be part of the community. A lot to get your head through, so you know what to do. Rewind and listen through all of it again with pen and paper, but most importantly, don't overthink it. Stay safe, look after yourselves, and thanks for listening. Ciao for now.
Thanks everyone. Be nice to each other and play it your way. Cue music please, man child.